I'd like to call the meeting to order. If we can stand and say the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everybody, for coming tonight. Do we have any visitors wishing to speak? I didn't see.
No, sorry, I meant to tell you.
No, thank you. Any reports of boards and committees?
Yes, I went to the ECASB meeting last Thursday, the Erie County Association of School Boards, and just a couple of dates to notice. Advocacy training at Erie One BOCES done by ECASB is going to be November 16th, 8:30 to 12. The legislative breakfast this year is January 25th, 8:30 to 11:30. The location hasn't been determined yet. And one of the things that they brought up, there is an advocacy scholarship available that hasn't been used in ages, years and years, that can offset the cost of attending stuff like Capitol Conference. So that would be something to look into if somebody might be interested in attending Capitol Conference this year or any other type of advocacy paid event. And Capitol Conference is going to be in February. We had a discussion about several of the NISBA proposed amendments and resolutions. You guys received the information. I think we're going to talk about it next month at some point. But I'll be the attendant to the conference this year, so it'll be interesting, or it'll be good to discuss anything if anybody has any thoughts or opinions about how I should be voting for those. And just a couple other little things. Interestingly, one of the school districts, Frontier, needed to rebuild their concession stand on their sports field, and they decided to buy their own food truck and made it part of their curriculum. I thought that was a really interesting tidbit. And ECASB has an offshoot 501c3 called Promoting Partnerships in Public Education. It has been dormant for years also, but they're going to revitalize that this year. They're going to need to put a board of directors together and things like that. It's all very early. But what they were talking about doing is starting work on a collaboration between Buffalo school districts and the first-ring suburbs with regard to after-school programming and activities. So there's definitely more to come on that.
Great, thank you. Anyone else? All right, we can turn over the superintendent's report.
Thank you. First, I just would like to point out, if anyone has not seen on our social media the recognition that Judy Gersick got for 40 years of service at Windermere. It was very special. I think it came as a complete surprise to Judy, and it was well deserved, so congratulations on 40 years. We now have official Twitter accounts for both Windermere and Smallwood. That started recently, so you can see that on the Windermere Twitter account. I think it was actually retweeted by the district account as well, but it's a nice video. So congratulations, Judy. I also am pleased to introduce Officer Trey Johnson from the Amherst Police Department. As you know, we started a partnership with the Amherst PD last January with a school resource officer. And so Trey has been about a semester on the job, and he is here to introduce himself and talk a little bit about his roles and responsibilities. Welcome.
Okay, thank you. Let's see if this works. In theory. Oh, there we go. Okay, so as Superintendent Pennell mentioned, my name is Trey Johnson. I've been, just a little bit about myself, I have 2 bachelor's degrees in fire science, one in fire and arson investigation, one in fire administration. I have certificates in fire prevention and hazardous materials from the University of New Haven. Just a little additional training, through the police department, not everything obviously, but just some. I did attend the National Association of School Resource Officers training program back in November when I got promoted to this job. I've been a field training officer with the department for almost 10 years now. I've also attended instructor development school through the police department For 10 years, I was a certified fire and explosion investigator, and for 12 years, I was an emergency medical technician. My professional experience from 1992 to 06, I was a volunteer firefighter active. Through that post, I was a lieutenant, a captain, an EMS captain. I did all that fun stuff. From 2001 to 2004, I was a full-time fire investigator, and then I also went back part-time for a couple of years later on. From 02 to 04, I was a public safety dispatcher for the Amherst Police Department, and most presently, from 2004 to currently, I have been a police officer with the Town of Amherst Police Department. In January, it'll be officially 16 going on 17 years. And like I said, for about the last 10 years, I've been a field training officer. I've trained somewhere in the neighborhood of 35, 40 new officers and been involved in all sorts of different training programs at the PD. So I kind of pirated a little bit of this from NASRO. But so the NASRO, the training course they talk about, they go through some of the stuff, the use of law enforcement in schools, the steady increase through the 70s and 80s up to the 90s where there were official school resource officers that were actually being placed into the schools. So as far as my role is concerned, we go by the triad or the pyramid. So the most important thing, I'm a law enforcement officer, so I'm there in that function. Then you get up to, I'm a counselor, a mentor, I talk to the kids. If kids have problems at home, things of that nature that maybe the counselors can't help them out with, something that's out of the school's realm that falls more to a law enforcement or social services, that's something that I can be involved with. And then the last thing is a teacher, and I'll talk a little bit about that. So that I have already done last year. Some of the government teachers in the high school had me come in. I did a little bit of Fourth Amendment search and seizure lecturing as far as it pertains to the students and what their rights and responsibilities would be out in the public, what us as a police department do, things of that nature. I also talked to, I believe, Mr. Belisle and I, we had our safety meeting it was the end of last year, I believe, and we talked about things and I put my input in as far as safety for the building, safety for the students, the staff. Like I said, the whole counselor mentor, that's, trying to build a relationship with the kids. I've already noticed to a certain extent from when I started this position at the end of January last year, when I started, kids walk by in the halls staring at their phone, don't want to make eye contact. And then towards the end of the year, it was more of, hey, Officer Johnson, how you doing? How was your weekend? A couple kids would come in, and like a couple of the kids I got talking to, I was out working, I'm building fences, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. So we talk a little bit about that, and I've had a few kids come in my office and want to talk about things going on at home, things that I can then maybe assist them with that doesn't necessarily fall into a school function. It's more of a law enforcement or social services thing. And then, finally, I'm there for the safety, the security of the students, the staff, the buildings. I'm there if we ever had, God forbid, an active shooter event, if we had some type of security risk to the building, if you had somebody who's not supposed to be on the property, if we do get into a law enforcement function where you did have a crime that occurred on school property, with school property, things of that nature. I'm there to assist, give my advice, to start the investigation. If it comes down to it, maybe even complete the investigation. So that's pretty much the three things that I'm involved with. Like I said, over the past 6-7 months since I've been doing this, I know I've talked to Superintendent Pinella multiple times after hours. I am available after hours. I work as a liaison between the department and the school. We can share information that previously you wouldn't be able to share legally because to a certain extent, I guess they consider us dual employment. I'm employed by the town, I'm assigned to the school district, but it gives a little more leeway. So if the school officials need more information, I can provide that to them and vice versa. So that's pretty much what I kind of do right now.
How do you rotate between the 4 schools? What does that look like?
So I have an office in the high school. My office is next to the Dean of Students. I spend probably 95% of my time in the high school with the older kids. And then if there is a need over at the middle school or Windermere over at Smallwood, I will bounce over there. I do try to stop in once, twice a week just to kind of walk around and say hi to the kids. With the younger kids, it's more, they just walk up, they want a high five. Oh, it's a police, kind of thing. The middle school kids are more like, oh, the cops are in the building. So we're trying to change that impression. We're trying to we want the kids to come to us when there's a problem. That's the big thing. And it's actually even more so with the older kids. Because the little kids, they're like, oh, the police. The older kids, whether it's something they've learned through the media at home, through the parents, whatever the case may be, I want them to know that I'm not there to jam them up. I'm there to help them. if they have an issue at home, if they have an issue in the school with somebody else, maybe something the school can't help them with, maybe something I can help them with. So that's kind of the whole, trying to build those relationships between me and the children.
We've always had a pretty strong relationship with the APD, but this has been what the single point of contact, as Officer Johnson mentioned, being available after hours. A Sunday afternoon comes to mind where he and I were both out doing things with our families, but he answered the phone and we were able to act proactively based on some things that we had heard, buzzing around on social media, and that is exactly what the SRO is designed to do, to increase communication between the two entities, have that single point of contact. So I know I am very appreciative of the enhancement of the relationship between us and APD through the SRO agreement or arrangement. Does anyone else have any questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
So the second item in the superintendent's report is the New York State Energy Research and Development Program. So I'm pleased to welcome guests from Wendell Companies. I'll let you introduce yourselves to the group, but we have some interesting benchmark data to review and a lot to talk about relative to where we might be able to save some money and energy moving forward.
Great, thank you. Thank you for having us here tonight. My name is Allie Edelman. I'm here with my colleague Jesse Wendell. We work at Wendell, right down the street from you. We're an architectural engineering, energy efficiency, and construction management firm. One of the things that I do is I oversee a program called the NYSERDA. That's the New York State Energy and Research Development Authority. It's their P-12 energy benchmarking initiative. This is a program that it's been a couple years in the making. It's very unique, and it was targeted specifically to schools because there was a feeling that a lot of the programs that used to be around to help districts take a look at their energy usage and really reduce their consumption had kind of faded away. There wasn't a whole lot there. Maybe there were some utility incentives, things to look at, perhaps specific system replacements or lighting. But really, the thought was districts need to take a step back and take a 30,000-foot view at what's happening throughout their facilities so that you can start looking at things and prioritizing projects or looking at how perhaps energy efficiency can dovetail with some of your capital projects, and just to give you data. That's the whole purpose of this program, is to provide you with as much data as we can on how your buildings are performing. The program itself, and I'm just going to run through. Okay, so I think what you have up here is the full report, and that's okay. I can work with it. The presentation's a little bit shorter, but we're going to do this. So basically, the program is 3 years, and NYSERDA pays for it. So the district doesn't pay for anything. And what they do is they did a real quick competitive bid to have 3 different firms work statewide with districts. So we're working with the districts all the way from Onondaga County over. And we're really happy. This program, the value of it has been seen. You were one of the first ones to come on and really say that this is something that could help you out. And what we do is we take your energy utility bills, basically your electric, your gas. We're able to analyze them, put them into a platform that takes a look and gives you a feedback on how the buildings themselves are doing. And so the report is going to show you a couple of different things. And the report that we send is your baseline. So what we did is we took 12 months of your historical data for each one of the schools for, like I said, for gas, electric, and water, plugged them into the program. What comes back out is a snapshot of those 12 months, and it allows you to look at how things are trending. So the first mark that you get is called a benchmark. And that would be, how would your school, let's say the high school, if it was built today to today's building and energy code, how would it compare? That's your first mark. Then it takes a look at, well, how is that school in the same size and occupancy and usage comparing to other schools within the program in New York State? So now you start seeing how are you performing more regionally, which is good because when we look at the national data, obviously how a school performs in Arizona is going to be a little bit different than the needs in New York State. But you do get the national data as well. So the 3 benchmarks that you'll get right off the bat are how you're performing against other schools within the program in New York State, nationally, and then you're also going to see how the buildings are trending against themselves. So for those 3 years, you'll get a new report every 6 months, and you'll start to see those trends. So you just had some work done at the high school. Okay? The baseline, to kind of set this up a little bit, was previous to a lot of that work being done. What we'll start seeing is in 6 months from now, and actually it'll be early in that, maybe October, November, we'll start pulling the data. You'll be able to see how is that building trending against itself now. Is it doing better now against other schools of similar size and usage across the state? Is it getting better as we look at it nationally? So these are the types of information that we'll be giving you in the report and through the program. And then we start helping you look at, well, what does that mean? This school, let's say, is performing worse than we thought it was. Why is that? We just did some work here. Or what are the opportunities? Or this school is performing better and we thought that this was a priority. So how do we look at this and use the data to help guide those decisions? The report, I'm going to give you a couple of examples here. I apologize if it's the full report up there. Okay, so this here is going to give you your total electric and natural gas usage. Okay, and this will do this for each one of the schools and the district overall. When we get to the high school, and again, let me preface this by saying this is the 30,000-foot view. Right? We're not boots on the ground going in and looking at all the systems and pulling that information. I'll get into that in a moment. So when we see the numbers here, there are real numbers and then there's estimated numbers. When you take a look at energy consumption, that's a real number. Those are numbers that are pulled from your utility bills. Your costs, those are the costs that you are paying for that duration of time, for those 12 months. There's additional information like energy use intensity at another time I can always get into, but I think for tonight we'll go through the high points. Here is where you start with your national rating. So you get your Energy Star performance. This looks at schools nationally. The school is at a 58. 75 means that the school is performing 75% better than others. The school is in the 58th percentile mark here. The B3 peer rating. This is a 19. So what this means is that out of the schools in New York State that are participating, the rating is 19 out of 100. So you're in the 19th percentile. There might be some opportunities. This is what it's showing you. There might be some opportunities to look at within the school because it's not performing quite as well as you would like it to. The benchmark rating. This is the one where if the school was built to energy code right now, how would it perform or how would it be looked at? What's that index? And it's 2 stars. So again, it's a little bit low. This is the first baseline. So I don't want anybody to look at this and say, oh, okay, you know, there's an issue. There are opportunities here to look at what's going on with it. You can see from the graph, this is an example of, and this is pulled out in summary form at the very end of the report. Down at the bottom, you have your electric usage, you have your gas in the blue, and you have this yellow line, which is the benchmark. You can see that when it comes to your electric usage, you're doing really, really well with the school. When it comes to the gas usage for heating, you're performing a little bit under what you should be. So right there, there's an opportunity to take a look at what's happening with the systems in the building. So the report will go through each one of the schools. We also did your water benchmarking. So you'll have your water report. Right now, it's showing your consumption and your amount in water in dollars. With the next report, the 6-month report, you'll start seeing how you're performing with water against the other schools as well. So each one of these in the report, it'll go through each one. It'll give you the information on what the costs are, what the usage is, And then also in the report, there are some opportunities. Now, I want to jump to the opportunities for a second because one of the other things that the program pays for is to do an operational assessment. Once you get your 6-month report, so let's say that comes out in November, right around then, NYSERDA will pay for our energy engineers to work with you and choose one of those schools. Maybe it's a school that you thought was going to be performing a little bit better and it's not. However, at your discretion, you choose. We'll come in and we'll take a more in-depth walkthrough look to help you identify what some of those savings and opportunities that there are. So that's something that NYSERDA wanted to add on there to give you kind of that next step. And right now, it's slated that there's one of those per district, but as the program progresses, if they have the funds, they're going to open it up for schools to ask for another operational assessment each year, which would be great. Any questions so far? No, I'm throwing a lot at you with this.
So how is it that they're ranked again, or how, peer groups, or how does this?
The 4 different ones?
No, I mean, are you looking at square footage and dividing it by energy usage? Are you looking at the number of buildings, or are you?
So we take each school separately, and we take the utility bills from each one of them. In the program, so the background of the program is taking a look at using energy use intensity. So basically you're looking at energy use per square foot per year. That's how it's calculated out. From that, there's different methods. So with the benchmarking piece of it, there's an index ratio. So basically it takes a look at a 1 would be you're performing exactly the way a building expected built today, the energy code would perform. You're taking your actual energy consumption divided by what the performance is expected to be for that same type of building built today. That number comes out and it's either going to be under 1, no, schools aren't going to be exactly 1, under 1, which means you're performing better. You're doing much better than a school would be built today. If that index ratio is over 1, that means that you're performing under what a school would be today. But it's the energy use intensity, it's the cost and the consumption that we're looking at. And the schools are compared by usage, similar occupancy, classroom to classroom, office to office, that type of thing. One thing we noticed when we were going through the report, and the staff here has been fantastic with working with us and getting the data, it's a process of refining it. So as we go through, we'll notice, okay, maybe we have 12 months of projected usage where it's really 11 months when you take a look at holidays or shutdown. So it's refining that over time so that it's a more accurate reflection of what's happening. So we're still working with staff and we'll continue to do that moving forward.
Are you able to go backwards and look at where we've been over years?
We can. It's something where, it's more of, we can pull a lot of the utility information direct from the utilities because we have a working relationship with them, which is great. Outside with NYSERDA, we work with National Grid and National Fuel. So we're able to do that. It depends on how far back you want to go and what the software should have the capability to do that. If we're talking about 10 years, it's maybe a little too much. But we have, if you wanted to go back 2 years, we would be able to do that. There's a option in the software to also put events. So let's say there's a weather event or you have an outage or a water pipe burst. You can go into the program, put that in as one of the events. So 2 years from now, when you're looking back at this and you see this spike, it's what happened, and that'll list it out. Or if you're doing a capital project or you're doing an outlay project and you want to see how that impacted the report, something we can add in.
Alan, just clarify that this report is based on the past 12 months, correct?
Yes, from May of 2018 to April of 2019.
So we are starting kind of with the past year, but it's not going back, 3, 4, 5 years.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong. The intent is to establish a baseline and now monitor it every 6 months for the next 3 years in order to see if, compared to the baseline, we're under or overperforming. And then if we see an area of concern, dive deeper into that area to figure out where we are with usage that might be causing us to under or overperform, depending on how you look at it.
Exactly.
Well, from where I'm looking at things, though, we've done things like LEDs and those types of things, new windows, and love to see if that's had any effect whatsoever, or if it can be quantifiable. Because at some point, right, a recommendation is going to be, potentially replacing all of these, or potentially doing that, or potentially replacing our power plant, okay? And so, what is it really gonna do? Because we've already done stuff, so if we can go back and see what effects of what we've done already, from my standpoint, would be helpful.
You would be able to see how overall the building was trending. What you wouldn't be able to pull out, let's say, would be a specific technology change, going from T8s to LEDs. You wouldn't be able to extract that kind of information, but you'd be able to see a change in the energy overall.
I'll make it easier. The one question that I've asked, will our meter spin less? Can it be any easier than that?
So we can talk after and see how far back, what the opportunities are and what we can.
Yeah, the easiest way to determine that might just be to look at your historical utility data. And I don't know how
Well, I'm
much.
just thinking you guys are already doing it, so that's.
We did that for 12 months. We can continue to go back. But to the superintendent's point, the idea is kind of to establish where we are today and then start to do exactly that, because we haven't done that in this marketplace, P through 12. So we want to get into a good habit of where are we today, how do we compare with current code requirements, and how do we compare with peer districts and buildings. And that's the idea behind the program.
And
One of the
we'll
concepts.
continue to make improvements and changes going forward, like the capital project stuff at the high school, so we'll be able to see that going forward too, right? I mean, that's part of the idea.
Yeah, I think, this, in my opinion, the reason it appealed to me when Ally reached out to me was it allows us to really take a look at our usage and whether or not there's something appropriate or inappropriate with our usage that we could control, because big things like boilers and LEDs and windows, we know that those are pretty costly, and if we have something in our usage, in our Smart Edge programming system that we could look at that might be able to dial things back, that's one way that we can realize some savings. In addition to how we're purchasing our commodities through the consortium that we're part of. So this was really our way to hone in on usage. I just wanted to circle back because I thought you referenced multiple points of comparison. So the first one is to compare the building to itself if it was built according to current energy codes, and then what are the other levels of comparison?
So there's 4 different benchmarks that you got. Excuse me. The first one will be how the building is trending against itself over time. The second one that you will get is if this building was built to today's code, how is it performing in relationship to that? That's that ratio.
Is that the Energy Star thing?
No, that is on your report. That's going to be the benchmark. So the peer rating,
Yeah.
the B3 peer rating, that is how you are comparing against other schools within the program in New York State. That's in the orange box. The yellow box is the benchmarking. So is it built to code today? How is it comparing? The blue box is the Energy Star. That's the national comparison. You do not have how the building is trending or the buildings are trending against themselves, because this is your baseline. So when you get the first 6-month report, then you'll see that number added on there as well.
How do you factor in, I'm sorry, where's my how do you factor in building utilization from an hour standpoint? This district is very robust in arts, sports, clubs, so we're burning power outside of times and other districts are black.
So what we do, we've been working hand in hand with Mark, Director of Facilities, and going through and refining that data. So basically what we start with is, okay, what's the percentage of what we call your space assets? How many classrooms compared to how many office spaces, gymnasium, auditoriums, right? Because those all have different energy usage and time frames that they're used. So first, we look at that, and that becomes a percentage of the overall square footage for each school. Then what we do is we take a look at, okay, what is the monthly use? Is it a 12-year school or 12 months? Is it used during the summer? Is it 10 months? How many hours during the day? Those are the pieces that we pull into this. Now, the scores, when you do the benchmarking again is a 30,000-foot view. So most other districts have some type of community usage here and there, but it's getting compared to similar ones. So if you're running all the time, 12 months, and your square footage is, you're a very small school, you're not going to be compared to a school. It doesn't fall in line that way. It has a different, let's say, mostly offices. It has a different calculation for that. So we've been working with Mark very closely, refining those numbers, getting them as close as we can. We do know that we just had a call the other day, that there are some pieces of information we want to update that's not reflected on the baseline that might make a little bit of difference. But the numbers that are real, without any kind of background calculation, is that energy consumption and your energy costs, that's straight from the utility bills. So that's not being looked at or calculated or skewed in any type of way. So
Yeah,
that's
I'm always
what
thinking
we
about
do.
the district comparisons. I mean, building to building, that is what it is. Either this building's taller than it was a year ago or it's not. But when we're being ranked against other districts, again, this is a very active extracurricular district, and we have old buildings.
Yeah, and the program also takes into account, for example, nuances like parking lot lights, right? Some districts will have, or a school will have their parking lot lights on the same meter as the building. Well, that's going to make that data look a lot different. So the program takes that into account and would take a look at the square footage of the parking lot. There's some background, kind of like industry standards, energy standards that plays into that. So then that doesn't get counted against you. So there's different factors that are built into the program to try to address some of those nuances.
So you isolate the outdoor stuff, like the football stadium lights. They don't count against the building.
No, this is building specific.
Okay.
That's really what the focus is to be. And it's, along with looking for the opportunities to improve efficiencies long term, we've found that this is also a really good tool for communicating out the really good things that you're doing, right? And it doesn't have to be in a complicated engineering report. Taking some of this information and sharing it with students and staff and the community can be helpful. And that leads me to just the last thing I wanted to touch on, because I know we're taking up a lot of your time. One of the things that Wendell wanted to bring to this program, and this was a passion of mine, I worked in the educational field in another life. And what we teach our kids, it's really important that they have a connection to the sciences and the hands-on piece of it. We collaborate with Western New York STEM. They're one of our partners. And so when this program came to be, we said, let us work with you, and any of the districts that are involved in this program will have one of their trainers through a program called GLOBE, which helps develop citizen scientists and looking at what's happening in the building, how that's affecting the energy use, what they're doing, and making that curriculum connection. We'll bring them in and work with whoever the district feels, whether it's a STEM coach or the teachers, and just do kind of an added curriculum piece to it. So that's an option that down the road, once we keep going with the program, that we'll explore with you and see where that fits into your goals.
Does anyone have any questions?
Thank you very much
you.
for giving us the
Thank
time
you.
to come and talk to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, certainly we'll have more to come on that program. As Ally mentioned, we are looking at baseline data and, hopefully we start to identify some trends and, we'll identify some areas where we can dive a little bit deeper. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
That's all I have for the superintendent's report. Thanks.
Okay. We will need a motion for new business items.
Make a motion for new business items 1A through D, 2A through D, 3, B, C, E, G, and H.
We have a second? Any discussion? All right, all those in favor of approving new business items E, 1A through D, 2A through D, and 3B, C, E, G, and H, please say aye. Aye, opposed, motion carries 6-0. Ms. Caselli, do we have any follow-up action items?
No, I don't.
All right. Then we will need a motion to convene to executive session.
I'll make a motion to convene to executive session for discussion of the employment of a particular person.
Oh, before we do that, I'm sorry. My apologies. I would just like to welcome Ms. Ogilvy to the Amherst team. We just appointed her as our new school lunch manager, so welcome aboard.
Thank you.
We look forward to working with you, and I'm sure our students look forward to some good food. I know Ms. Buzinski is looking forward to transitioning back over to you, so the role.
And this Ogilvy gets to look to the kitchen remodel, the lunchroom.
Oh yeah, you get to design a whole new kitchen next summer, so.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, so please continue. I forgot.
Do you need me to say it again?
Do we need
We need a second motion.
need a second to the motion?
A second.
All those in favor of convening to executive session, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everybody, for coming.